Hey everyone, Duke here, and with a lot of new players and returning players coming back for the Final Shape expansion, I wanted to go over high stat armor, and we're going to go over some tips, some ways to farm it, and just a couple other things that you're going to want to know with this new expansion. The first way is going to be familiar if you've been playing Destiny for a while, and it's going to be focusing armor at the helm. This season, it's going to be at failsafe. It's really easy to unlock. It's just going to take basically doing the first seasonal mission, and then you are going to need to be able to get all of the armor pieces at least once before you can start focusing the high stat armor. You can just do this by doing the seasonal activity a few times. Once you do that, you're going to be able to focus each of the pieces for high stat armor, and specifically, you're going to be able to focus with a specific stat. We're going to break this down really quick just in case you are either returning to the game or newer to the game. This is, again, this part has not changed for a while, but just a one-stop shop video. What you're going to want to do is you're always going to want to be using an armor mod on your ghost whenever you're focusing armor and going for this high stat armor. What this will do is this will guarantee that you get at least 10 into whatever stat you put it in. Most of the time it's actually going to give you even higher than that, potentially even 20 plus, and quite often 20 plus. A super quick breakdown for high stat armor is you want to pick 3 stats that you care about most. It does not matter what these 3 stats are. For me, on Warlock at least, it's going to be Resilience, Recovery, and Discipline, and I feel like on all 3 characters those are pretty good stats anyway. But you want to pick 3 stats, make sure that they're not all in the top 3 column or the bottom 3 column. You need to pick at least 1 from the top 3 and at least 1 from the bottom 3. So again, for me that's Resilience, Recovery on the top 3, and then Discipline on the bottom 3. And whichever one is by itself, out of either the top 3 or the bottom 3, that is going to be the armor that we want to use to get and focus the best armor that we possibly can. The reason for this is we want to basically get as much stat as we can into that single stat we care about, and we want to get a higher chance to get more stat into the 2 out of 3 stats that we care about on the other side. So again, in this case, we don't really want to get mobility, but resilience and recovery are both good. So we'd focus discipline to try to get as much as we can into discipline and less into intellect and strength. The reason for this is because, again, if you don't already know, all armor in the game basically splits itself into approximately, not exactly, but approximately half of its stats in the top 3 stats and half of its stats in the bottom 3 stats. This is also why we can't just pick, let's say you're a hunter, you can't just pick, I want to have 100 mob, 100 resilience, and 100 recovery. That is not really possible because, again, you're going to get so much of your stats on the bottom half still, and you're going to be half of your stats aren't going to be able to go there. There is a couple caveats to that, but that's something that you're not really going to worry about in this video. If you look at any piece of armor that you have or that I have, again, you're going to notice that the armor is about 50% on the top 3 stats and about 50% on the bottom 3 stats. Again, not going to be exact. You can definitely have some boosts and some higher numbers on one side than the other, but you're never going to get like 70 in mobility, resilience, and recovery only. So again, that's why we want to specify some of the stuff that we're doing with the Ghost mod. Now, the great thing about seasonal engrams, or I guess episode engrams you'd call them now, are the fact that you can get these from literally anything in the game. You don't have to focus playing on certain pieces of activities that you may not like to play. Just play whatever you normally like to play whatever you want to play, and you're going to get a bunch of Echo engrams this season. And then you can come in here. Again, you are going to need to make sure that you have these unlocked one time, so you will have to play the seasonal activity a little bit to make sure you have every piece unlocked in order to be able to actually start focusing each of them. But again, make sure you have your ghost mod on that you want to use, and then we're just going to go ahead and grab 2 pieces of armor for each slot and see what we end up with. So again, since we have the discipline armor mod, we get a very high roll in discipline. Again, it says it's only 10 guaranteed, but a lot of times, again, a lot of these pieces of armor you're going to see is going to be quite a bit higher than 10 discipline. Now this hit mobility, we don't really want that at all, so not a great piece, but it is still a 65 roll, which is quite high. Our second helmet here is super great. It is a 30 max roll of discipline and a 29 resilience. This is almost literally 30 max on both sides. This is our second piece of armor, 67 total stats. Again, the helm armor stats are just insane. Like, you're not going to see pieces like this in almost any other part of the game, at least not remotely consistently. And the helm is so easy. Again, you can play any part of the game and you're just getting these. So this is the way you really want to be getting a lot of armor. We can go ahead and look at our gloves. Again, this is a little bit of a lower one total, but a nice, really high discipline roll and a solid recovery roll. Next gloves, again, we hit mobility, unfortunately, but a 66 total. So it we're getting mostly 65, 66, 67 rolls on these pieces. Again, another 65 here. A nice mix of recovery and resilience, and again, very high discipline. Another 66, unfortunately hit the mobility, so not great there. Another 65, again, hit really high recovery. If that was mobility instead of resilience, this would be another pretty much perfect piece. And then this leg is a little, again, a little bit off, a little bit high on the mobility, unfortunately, but another 67 roll. So literally just our first 8 engrams, 2 pieces each. We're getting almost nothing but 65, 66s, and 67. I would say like 2 of these were perfect, and another 1 or 2 were close to perfect. Again, if we want mobility, then even better. A lot of these were unfortunately a little bit high on the mobility side, but shows how fast and how easy you can get great armor from just these Echo engrams and Helm engrams as a whole. Now, one thing I want to talk about, again, in terms of your 3 main stats that you want to be focusing on, is you want to be looking at the 2 in the same column constantly. And again, for me, that's resilience and recovery. If the 2 of those stats adds up to either 31 or 32, that is a very, very good piece of armor. That's going to get you right in that perfect ballpark of being able to hit triple hundreds comfortably, which is awesome. And actually, this season, there is a small but pretty meaningful change to armor that's going to make it even a little bit easier. Even if it is only 30, I would still definitely be looking at that this season just because of this change that we're going to talk about in a little bit. But again, this is a great piece, 31 between the resilience and recovery, and obviously the discipline is super high. And the chest piece, again, 31 between the resilience and the recovery. It's a lower max on the resilience and the recovery there. Like neither one is as spiky, but combined, still hitting 31, and again, 24 plus discipline. That's super great as well. Now the next 2 ways to farm high stat armor are new for the final shape. Our first is going to be at the Ghost in the new Pale Heart location. This is going to be a little bit longer in terms of unlocking. You are going to need to do some of those Lost Ghost quests and unlock all the armor through that. But on the bright side, that will unlock the armor for all 3 of your characters, so it's a one-time thing. You get all the armor unlocked and you're able to do pretty much almost the exact same thing that we were doing at the Helm with the Helm focusing. Now the nice thing you can do here is if you are doing any sort of farming on the Pale Heart, such as potentially doing some of the overthrows for the Ergo Sums, or maybe doing just chest farming for your exotic class items, you can get not only these Pale Heart engrams, quite a few of them, but you're also going to potentially be able to get those Echo engrams as well. So basically you're just playing the game how you want to play. You're going to get a bunch of Echo engrams, but if you're specifically going for some of the things that are on the Pale Heart, which would make sense as this is a new area and new activity, and a lot of the things you're going to want to be doing are going to be on the Pale Heart, you're going to probably get quite a few of these engrams as well. Now, our third way to get high stat armor is not necessarily new, nor is it farmable, but it is Xur, and Xur has gotten quite a bit of changes if you have not already seen him. Again, he's still Catalyst, he's got like a whole reputation system, but he does have a chance to give you some high stat armor each week. Now, first of all, the exotics that he can sell are potentially quite high. This Armatarium, I think I'm definitely going to buy this week. Actually has a 34 stat combination between resilience and recovery, which is insanely good. Again, high discipline, which even for Titan, definitely something I'm going to want. We're actually just going to grab this now so I don't forget to get it, even though I'm not on my Titan. But you definitely want to be looking at these exotics. Again, these currency armlets, unfortunately, super high mobility. But again, if you want mobility, if you want intellect for 69 total stats, like those are some super high rolls. And again, he does actually sell legendaries as well. This week, not super great, at least not on the Warlock here. We do have a 67, but the distribution is pretty oof. And again, this 66, again, not great distribution. But he actually can sell Artifice armor, which is pretty insane. Not on the Warlock this week, but he does have the potential to sell Artifice armor. And again, this is some pretty decently high stat armor, so you never know what he could potentially bring on a given week. So definitely want to be looking out and checking him out here as another way to get some high stat armor. Now you'll notice I didn't actually mention Artifice armor other than really quickly here at Xur, and that's because most Artifice armor in the game is actually just not gonna roll very good. Again, if you want to absolutely min-max, and you want to grind your butt off, you can absolutely go ahead and try to get some Artifice armor from the Master Dungeons. I believe also Comp also drops it now too, but I would just not recommend it unless you are just an absolute min-maxer to the nth degree, because most of the time the Artifice armor that you get is just gonna be worse rolls than the Helm armor and the other armor that we've shown potentially here. Like, it's very hard to get a 65 plus Artifice piece that is also really, really good distributions, which is the only way that you're going to be better than some of this armor that we've shown so far. Again, if you get like a 60 roll Artifice armor and it's like, decent distributions or something like that, it's really just ends up being the same, because the only thing Artifice armor is doing is giving you that extra +3 roll. Again, the nice thing with the +3 roll and the nice thing with the Artifice armor is it does give you a little bit more flexibility on where the stats are going. And if you're like barely not quite at a stat, you can use that +3, gives you a little bit more flexibility in, actually building out the stats. So that is definitely a positive. But the one thing I would recommend in terms of Artifice armor for sure is getting a class item, because again, class items don't have rolls at all, so that just gives you a guaranteed +3 in terms of extra stats. The other thing, which I did briefly allude to earlier in this video, is Artifice armor can now be, or exotic armor can now be made into Artifice armor. This one actually already is, and it just doesn't have a stat in it. I need to find a exotic that I have not made into Artifice armor yet. Here we go. And so in order to actually do this, you are going to spend 10,000 Glimmer, which is pretty much nothing. But you are going to need an exotic cipher for every single exotic that you want to turn Artifice. So I would exotic ciphers are quite rare still. They're a little. They've added a few more ways in terms of getting a few more of these a little bit more often, but they're definitely not something you're just going to be able to get constantly. So you definitely want to be using this on specific exotics that you for sure are using a lot and hopefully are also pretty good rolls. But if you do go ahead and use this, you can unlock an extra slot. We'll just go ahead and, I'm not even sure what kind of roll this is, but we're just going to go ahead and show you. So you unlock it, and then that's going to turn it Artifice, and you're going to be able to get that extra +3 stat in whatever you want. So now your exotic armor pieces can also be Artifice, which is great. So that's giving you, again, between the class item and between this exotic, you can get an extra 6 total stats somewhere in your build just with those two pieces without having to do really too much crazy min-maxing of, going for all this other Artifice. Again, technically you can get +15 total, but again, even with that extra 9 across those other 3 pieces, that's only helpful if you're actually getting really, really good Artifice. So I talked about this quite a while. It's been a thing for quite a while, and I still believe the same way that Artifice, again, is certainly good, certainly has its place, certainly has its role, but I just don't recommend it unless you really enjoy the grind, because I feel like it's something that's going to put you off of potentially playing, and I don't want people feeling that way, right? And especially when it's not going to be that impactful, and if it is, even if you do get any bonus, it's going to be exceedingly small. Again, and in a lot of cases, you're just not going to see a bonus compared to some of this other armor that you can just get very easily. Now, the last thing I want to talk about in this video is farming exotics and getting higher stat exotic armor. And Rahul, kind of like Zur, has changed quite a bit for this season. And he has a reputation track, and by maxing out his reputation one time, that is going to give you access to your tier 3 focusing. You're also going to get an exotic cipher every time you reset with Rahul, so turning in primes, turning in exotics, and focusing exotics is very helpful because that's going to give you more exotic ciphers, as we were just talking about in terms of, they have a few more ways to get them now. But with Rahul, you can focus exotics that you get, from either solo lost sectors, just drops off the ground from enemies, or doing your Strikes Gambit Crucible, 3 matches, 6 matches, 9 matches each week. I think that's definitely a beneficial one that I'd recommend people do, especially if you need a bunch of exotics still and want to get some higher stat armor. Now, in terms of the focusing of your armor, I wouldn't really recommend doing this first tier pretty much ever, unless you just want to get rid, even if you just want to get rid of them, I would just, at that point, I'd recommend just talking to Rahul and just clicking here. Like, I don't think the first tier is really all that useful in too many cases. Again, like, you at least can break it down a little bit where there's only, a couple pieces, and if like these were the only pieces you wanted, sure, but I feel like in most cases it's not going to be like these specific, like, 3 to 5 armor pieces that you want. It's like you want one, or like, maybe you want 1 or 2, and they're going to be from completely different things. And what's great, again, with the tier 2 focusing is you can just pick any armor piece that you want, assuming you've at least unlocked it. With tier 3 focusing, especially for the 2 new exotics, you actually have to use tier 3 focusing. You can get one from the Legend campaign. If you don't do the Legend campaign, you can just do both from tier 3 focusing. Again, you do need exotic ciphers to unlock from here. Now, the thing with these exotic ciphers is, again, like we just talked about, they are rare, so I would definitely not recommend doing the tier 3 focusing just to focus more of them. Like, unlock it, get your unlock, and get out of here. Save your other ciphers for actually artificing, if that's a verb. Artifice, getting your exotic armor into Artifice armor, or upgrading it to Artifice armor. Once you actually have it unlocked, you're going to want to do the tier 2 focusing, as this again costs still the exotic engram, but just some glimmer. And ascendant shards aren't super easy to get for everybody, but they're at least a lot more farmable and a lot more acquirable than ciphers are, for sure. And this is the main thing you're going to be using these shards on, as well as upgrading the armor in the first place anyway. So I definitely recommend doing the tier 2 focusing in order to be using your exotic engrams. Again, and doing either tier 2 or tier 3 also gives you as much XP as you can get in terms of leveling up Rahul. So even if you don't have tier 3 focusing unlocked yet, and let's say you want to get the Speaker's Sight unlocked, for example, I feel this is a great exotic this season. You can just focus another exotic that you may want here, get a lot of XP, and get your Rahul reputation up quickly. Also, one last bonus thing to talk about, but we do have Grandmaster Nightfalls coming out literally this week, so this is going to be another great way to farm. Again, some of the exotics, the downside here is the exotics that you get are just kind of random on what you actually are getting, but you can definitely get a bunch of Ascendant Shards by farming these as well, so that's going to, again, allow you to then use any regular exotic engrams that you can then focus at Rahul to specifically pick the exotics that you want, and maybe some of the exotics you actually get directly from the GMs will actually be the ones you want anyway, or they'll at least be ones that you want to get better rolls of anyway too. So it's kind of a double dipping, double benefit there. And not only that, again, this will count towards your ritual activities as well, so you'll be getting the exotic engrams for doing 3, 6, and 9 activities here as well. So it's like triple dipping. You get prisms, you get like you get everything from doing Grandmaster Nightfall. So these coming out this week is definitely going to be a super big boon in terms of getting some of these materials and getting some of these pieces that you may want to be able to upgrade and focus on. And again, then don't forget that you can turn them into Artifice to make them even better. And that's all for today. I hope this video was helpful. Make sure to leave a comment below if you think there's anything that I missed in this video, if there's any ways that you farm high stat armor that you think are really, really useful. And as always, thank you so much for watching, and have a wonderful day.